We are so honored to have you with us today in our service. And again, those of you joining us online this morning. And we are concluding a series that we have been in for, it seems like a long time. Several things have gone on, and we've been out of town some, and finally concluding this series we've entitled The Secret to Victorious Living. And in our first sermon, we talked about living free and how to make time for God in our lives, in our daily lives, and the things that we do. In the second sermon, we talked about how to live connected, and we encourage you to find other believers to connect to and to have relationships with and friendships with. And throughout this entire series, we're hoping that it speaks to our life and it wakes us up to the power of God that is inside of us. And today we want to wrap up by talking about living a selfless life. The concept of selfless living goes against almost everything our culture in North America teaches us. Our culture teaches us to take care of ourselves. It teaches us to obey our thirst. It teaches us to do what feels good to us in that moment. But yet, as we look at the New Testament and the life of Jesus and the life that he lived, we see that he taught us a very different lifestyle. In fact, he taught us to live a lifestyle that is countercultural. He taught us to live in a way that was revolutionary, and he taught us to live in a way with his thinking that was intriguing and to live through his love, which is indescribable. And in fact, Jesus never asked us to do anything in the New Testament that he does not empower us to do. And I want you to get a hold of that this morning, if you will. There is nothing that the New Testament asks believers to do that it is impossible for us to do. Everything that Jesus modeled for us, everything the Holy Spirit tells us in the New Testament, it is possible to do those things and to live our lives that way. And so Jesus modeled a new way for us to live, and if we truly want to live the life that we were meant to live, then we must embrace the lifestyle that Jesus modeled for us. And what is that lifestyle? It is a lifestyle of selflessness. When you think of Jesus, you think of selflessness. There was no fulfilling his own desires, obeying his own thirst. There was none of this selfishness. It is all selflessness when we look at the life of Jesus Christ. And so, while it is hard to be selfless in a self-centered world, that is what our calling is from the Word of God, and that is what our responsibility is. I was looking at a Bible study a few weeks ago, and I came across a title. I tried to remember it this morning, but it had a picture of someone with their smartphone doing this. Does everybody know what this is called? When you take a picture of yourself? A selfie, right? How many have ever taken a selfie in this room? Would you just raise your hand this morning? Come on, you've taken a selfie of yourself. You've taken your camera and you snapped a picture. It is hard to live selflessly in a selfie world. Now, that was the name of that Bible study. It's hard to live selflessly in a selfie world. And why is that? Because all of us like to take pictures of ourselves doing something, or the majority of us do. We take pictures of our food. We take pictures of our dogs and of our cats. We take pictures of our cars. We take pictures when we go on vacations because we want the world to see where we are and what we're doing. And what has it created? It has created a selfish society in which we're now living in, where we want everybody to know what we're doing. Yet Jesus comes and says, I want you to live a selfless life. It's not about you. It's not about your recognition. It's not about your name being up in lights, but it is about the life I modeled for you to live. And that is what I hope to convey to you this morning, and hope to get that point across to you as well. Jesus, like you and I, lived very much in the real world. He dealt with the same types of issues that you and I deal with, and yet he chose to respond to those issues and those things in his life in a God-honoring way. And I want to encourage you this morning that in whatever is going on in your life and whatever is happening around you, to honor God by responding to those things in a way that does truly honor God. Think about your responses. Think about the words and what you're about to say and what you're about to do. Jesus put the needs of others often and many times and most of the time ahead of his own needs, and he lived for others. And so he gives us a lifestyle that he wants us to model and how to live the life that he lived. And so I want to give you several ways that we can pull out of the life of Jesus to see how he lived a selfless life. Here's the first way. I must be willing to step or enter into someone else's world. I must be willing to enter into someone else's world. Most of us live in a very fast-paced culture. We are constantly running from one thing to the next thing, and everything we're running to is important. The thing I've got to get to is more important than the thing I'm at right now, and the thing after that is even more important. So everything is important, so I have to go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's very easy for us to get wrapped up in our accomplishments and our to-do list and miss out on the key opportunities that we have to connect with the people that God has put into our life. Most of us have heard this statement, and I'll repeat it again, but we need to slow down and we need to smell the roses. How many know what that means? We need to slow down and smell the roses. Slow down and enjoy life. Slow down and enjoy the moment. Slow down and enjoy what is happening to you, because all of us have wished that we could get ahead in life in some way. When you're a small child, you want to be an older child. When you're in high school, you can't wait to graduate high school. When you're in college, you can't wait to graduate college. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And we spend our time wishing our lives away. I wish I was here. I wish I was there. But sometimes you have to stop and smell the roses and enjoy the moment that you find yourself in today. And that is one of the greatest challenges that all of us face, is to be present in the moment. I wonder how many times we have missed out on key moments because we are caught up in going to what is going to happen next. But as we live a selfless life, it means that we're going to be present in the moment with the people around us. It means that we will from time to time set aside our agenda and we will enter into someone else's world. In fact, in Luke chapter 7, we read a tremendous account in the life of Jesus where he stepped into someone else's world. Jesus is in a little town called Nain, or he's going to this little town called Nain. And as he gets closer to this town, he runs face to face into a funeral procession. And he sees a woman in this funeral procession who is a widow, so her husband is dead, who is on her way to bury her only son. Now she's all by herself in this world. Her husband has died, and I think in this culture, her husband has died. He would be there to provide for her. Her husband has died. Now her son has died, who would take the father's place and protect his mother, provide for her, be there when she needed him. And now the son is dead as well. Let me just stop for a moment and ask you a question. What do you normally do when you come across a person who is in pain? How do you normally respond when you meet someone whose heart is broken by a tragedy or a loss? How do you react when you come in contact with an individual who is confused about life or overwhelmed by life or simply discouraged by life? Maybe like me, many times you think to yourself, I should call that person, or maybe I should stop by their house and visit them. But then you begin to rationalize that thought in your mind. And you say things like this, well, maybe they are too busy for me to call them or me to visit them. Or maybe I will catch them at a bad time. Or maybe I will embarrass them by the way they look right now because they're not feeling well. Or maybe it's going to be an awkward conversation, or maybe it's just going to take too long. And what happens to us many times as we see people who are hurting, people who are in need, people who are lonely, people who are discouraged, is we rationalize it so long in our minds that we miss out on the opportunity to step into their world and minister to them. And yet look at what Jesus did when he saw the woman in pain who had lost her only son. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her and he said, don't cry. So instead of holding back, Jesus steps right into her pain, right into the middle of what's going on in her life. And he walks right up to this widow who has just lost her son, and he offers her hope in the middle of her pain. And he says, I'm not going to avoid you. I'm not going to let you go home in this pain, but I'm going to take time out of my schedule and out of my ministry and what I've got going on, and I'm going to step into your world. And I'm going to minister to you. I'm going to help you. And I'll talk to you, and I'll pray with you, and I will encourage you, and I will do everything that I can to try to help you. Because every now and then you've got to stop your agenda and stop your plan and stop what you have planned to do throughout that day and say, you know what, this is more important than what I have on my calendar today. Let me stop what I'm doing and step into your world and meet you where you are. So Jesus looks at her and he says, stop crying. And then he says, he went up and he touched the coffin. And those carrying the coffin stood still. And Jesus said, young man, I say to you, get up. The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Don't cry. Young man, get up. Here's your mother. Mother, here's your son. Now go back home and live life and take care of your business. Now most of us see a miracle like that, and we are in awe that Jesus could bring people back to life. And yet we miss the key ingredient, I believe, of all of Jesus' miracles that he did. And it is one word: love. Love. Every miracle of Jesus recorded in the New Testament is based on that one word: love. He loved this mother. He loved the families of people that he brought back to life. He loved the people that he fed with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Every miracle Jesus did was surrounded and wrapped in love. And it was that love for people that caused him to step into their world and say, let me help you any way that I can. Let me just ask you this morning, when is the last time you cared enough to stop whatever you were doing and to step into somebody else's world and minister to them and pray for them, maybe even give them some money if that's what it called for, whatever it was? When is the last time you loved somebody enough to stop rationalizing away what you know you should be doing for them because of the love of God that is inside of you? So first and foremost, we see from the life of Jesus that we must be willing to step into somebody else's world from time to time. Secondly, we learn from the life of Jesus that we need to extend a helping hand. If we're going to live a selfless life, then we must be willing to enter into someone else's world and practically demonstrate the love of Christ. And how do we practically do that? We do that by extending a helping hand. For some situations, that may mean that we pray for that individual. For others, it means that we attempt to meet a need that they have. Sometimes it means just listening to them or offering a word of hope. And listen, this morning, you and I may not be able to resurrect someone from the dead, but God can use you and God can use me to resurrect hope where there is despair, and joy where there is sadness, and peace where there is fear. God can use you to resurrect those things in the people's lives around you. But you got to step into their world and you have to extend a helping hand. We can make practical living very prominent in our lives by listening to what the Holy Spirit is telling us to do. Jesus, again, is our great example in all these things, and he reached out to the world around him and tried to help them as much as he could. And when God brings someone into your world who is in pain, don't run away from them. Don't ignore them. Don't hide from them. Don't assume that somebody else is helping that person out because they're in pain. But the Word of God and the example of Jesus Christ challenges us to move toward that person and to express love and concern for their situation. And yeah, sometimes you feel awkward when you do that. And sometimes you may be misunderstood. And you may even be disappointed when you try to help people sometimes. Can I just tell you this? You will be disappointed when you try to help some people. They will disappoint you. You will pour your to somebody and they will disappoint you. They'll go back to the same mess they came to you with. They'll go right back to it. And so, yeah, you'll be disappointed sometimes. And yeah, it'll be awkward every now and then. And you might even get hurt in that process. But considering the needs of others and extending a helping hand are key ingredients to living a selfless life. That's what this next passage bears out to us in Philippians 2. This is from the Message translation. If you've gotten anything at all out of following Christ, if his love has made any difference in your life, if being in a community of the Spirit means anything to you, if you have a heart, if you care, then do me a favor. And here's what Paul asks for. Agree with each other. Love each other. Be deep-spirited friends. Don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet-talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and help others get ahead. There are probably 5 or 6 sermons in that one statement right there. Whew, ouch. Then he says, don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. Stop trying to push yourself to the front. Stop stepping on people to get ahead. Stop tearing people down and criticizing people. Stop making other people look bad so that you look good in the eyes of everybody else. Stop. And instead, be kind to each other. Be deep-spirited friends. Help each other. In other words, stop whatever it is that you're doing and lend a helping hand. Can I just say that there are times when people need more than prayer? Prayer is great. We need to pray. We should pray for each other. But there are times when people need more than prayer to help them in a situation that they are currently in. Didn't Jesus address this with his disciples? When he sends them forth, and he says, if you have 2 coats, take 1 coat and give it to somebody else who doesn't have a coat. If you have 2 pairs of shoes, and most of us have more than 2 pairs of shoes. But if you have 2 pairs of shoes, you wear a pair of shoes and you give that other pair of shoes to somebody else who needs them, who doesn't have them, who can't afford them. What is he saying? He's saying sometimes you have to do more than just pray for people. You have to be practical with them. What good is it to see somebody standing in a foot of snow with no coat on and saying, I'm praying that you'll receive a coat today. And you've got 4 coats at home in the closet. What good is that? What good is it to see somebody who's walking around and their shoes are falling off of their feet and say, you know what? I believe God can give you a pair of shoes before the day is over. I'm going to pray for that. And I'm going to go back home and I'm going to try to figure out which pair of shoes I'm going to wear today because I got 20 pairs stuffed in the closet. I've got shoes that got so much dust on them I couldn't even slide my feet into them right now if I wanted to. I haven't worn them in so long. You see, Jesus taught us to be practical. Step into their world and meet the need that they have. And sometimes that need is going to be more than prayer. And yet so often we are so self-absorbed with what we have going on in life that we do not notice the people around us who need help. And so we see that Jesus was willing to be interrupted. He was willing to extend a helping hand. And here's the third principle that we see from the life of Jesus. I will not expect anything in return. And listen, you got to get a hold of this principle, because you might step into somebody's world and you may lend a helping hand, but you have to tell yourself, I'm not expecting anything in return for what I'm about to do. And most of us struggle with this principle because we love to keep score. Most of us are willing to help somebody out. But how many times, and don't raise your hand, have you helped someone out, and in the back of your mind you thought to yourself, you owe me one now. You owe me one. I'm going to call this favor in one day. And you know how it goes. Hey, remember that time I helped you out? Could you come and help me out now? Because you owe me one. Because I'm keeping score of everything I've ever done for you and however I've ever helped you out in life. And now you owe me something. But friendships are about helping people out. That's what friendships are about. And that's what we just read in Philippians, have deep-spirited friendships. Friendships are about helping people out. And I understand that there's a give and take in every relationship, but pure love gives without expecting anything in return for that favor. And so we see this principle lived out in the life of Jesus as he hung on the cross. And I want you to look at what 1 John 3:16, not John 3:16, 1 John 3:16 says. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. That's how we know what love is. Love is me stepping into somebody else's world. Love is me extending a helping hand. And love is me saying, I do not expect anything in return for this. Nothing at all. Because you're my brother and you're my sister, and I love you with the love of Christ, and I'm going to help you, and I don't keep score anywhere, and I'm doing this simply because of the example of Jesus Christ, that he laid down his life for me. And he didn't expect anything in return. And he never said, you owe me big time now. And he never said, you can never repay me for what I've done for you. He just simply laid down his life because he loved us, and he expects us to do the same for our brothers and sisters in Christ as well. That we are to lay down our lives. We are to give of ourselves, to give of our time, give of our abilities, give of our means, whatever it requires. I will step in and I will help you. Some of you probably know the story of Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was a professional football player with the Arizona Cardinals. And he turned down a 3-year contract worth $3.6 million after the September 11th attack on our country. And he joined the United States Army and became an Army Ranger in Afghanistan. Pat Tillman was killed while on patrol. In fact, he was killed by friendly fire while on patrol. Now, he was a young man who was willing to sacrifice material possessions, a dream job in the NFL, $3.5 million, gave it all up for his family and his friends and his country, and even for people he didn't even know. He gave it all up. He stepped out of the limelight of the NFL and into the desert of Afghanistan so that you and I in this country could continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have today and all that this country has to offer. What is Pat Tillman? He is an example of selfless living. That is selfless living. Now, most of us will never be asked to die for a cause. But are we willing to simply give without expecting anything else in return? Jesus taught this clearly in Luke chapter 10 when he talked about a man who had been robbed and beaten and left on the side of the road for dead. You know the story as the Good Samaritan. And you know that religious leaders and people passed by this man but did not offer any help at all. And then a Samaritan, the most unlikely of all people, stops and helps. And he has pity on the man, and he bandages his wounds, and he puts him on his donkey, and he takes him to an inn, and he gives the innkeeper money and says, I'll come back and pay for anything extra that the man may have. The Samaritan did all of this and expected nothing in return. What happened that day? He saw a need, and here's what he said, I can help that need. And can I just tell you that there are probably dozens of needs every day that you and I go past, that if we thought enough about it, we could say, I can help that need. Or maybe we should say it this way, I could help that need, but I won't help that need. You probably never verbalized it that way and never thought about it that way. But in reality, when you see a need and you can't help that need, that is what you're saying in reality. I could help that need, but I won't help that need. I could help that person, but I won't, because I don't have time on my schedule. I could help them, but I don't know what they'll do with that money if I give them that money. I can help them, but if I stop and change that flat tire for them, I'm going to be covered in dirt and grime, and I've got to go to church this morning. I could help them, but I won't help them. How many times have you said that in your own life? I could help them, but I won't. Jesus taught us that when you saw a need, you stopped and you helped with the need. You did everything in your power. Listen, maybe you can't pay everybody's bills. I understand that. You can't meet every need that people have. I get that. You don't have an endless supply of resources, of finances. None of us have an endless supply like that. But we can help in some way. The people that are hurting and discouraged and who have no joy and who have no hope around us, we can stop and help them in some way. And when the Spirit of God is inside of us and it leads us that way, we never say to that individual, now you owe me for this. Now you owe me. And I'll say, for Pastor Atkins, God forgive me for the times that I have kept score, because I will be transparent with you this morning and tell you, I have kept score before. I have kept record of how many times I've helped people. I have had a checklist of people in my life that I've helped. God forgive me for that. And if I've done it, I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room that's done that before. God forgive us. God help us not to expect anything in return when we reach out to those who we need help and cannot return the favor. Listen, living a selfless life is not only about helping the poor, but it also involves giving grace and mercy to people who do not deserve grace and mercy. It's not just about finances and material things. Sometimes living a selfless life means I'm going to give you grace and I'm going to give you mercy. And you don't deserve grace and mercy from me, but I'm going to extend it to you anyway, because I didn't deserve grace and mercy. But Jesus Christ went to a cross, and he hung on that cross for me, and he gave me a new start, and he gave me a new life, and he gave me grace and mercy when I didn't deserve grace and mercy. And the gift that I have received from Jesus Christ, I want to give it right back to you. So I'm going to give you grace, and I'm going to give you mercy, even when you don't deserve it. I expect nothing in return for that. Today, we all know people who deserve great punishment, at least in our minds, for their words and actions against us and against other people. But true selflessness says you might deserve to be punished, but I'm going to extend mercy to you. So we see Jesus, who was willing to be interrupted. We see Jesus, who was willing to extend a helping hand. We see Jesus, who did all kinds of things for people in his culture who expected nothing else in return. And finally, we see this principle from the life of Jesus. I will not seek revenge when people hurt me. Living selflessly says that I will turn the other cheek. Living selflessly says that I will not retaliate. But how many would agree today that that is something that is hard not to do when somebody hurts you or hurt somebody that you love, it's hard not to retaliate. It's hard not to strike back. It's hard not to want to launch out at that person and try to hurt them just as bad. Because there's that natural human tendency inside of us to want to hurt that person back who has hurt us. And turning the other cheek is not something that is easy to do. In fact, for most people, it is almost impossible to turn the other cheek when somebody has hurt you. And that is why you can't do that by yourself. And that is why you can't do it in your own power and your own strength. I don't care how easygoing you are. I don't care what a calm personality you have. I don't care how humble people see you as being. You cannot turn the other cheek within your own power and your own strength. And that is why you need a power that is greater than you are. The power that is involved in the kind of life that Jesus lived. And that's why you need something that is supernatural, because the natural man strikes back and hits back and hurts back, but the supernatural man does not allow that to happen in your life. And he controls it and he keeps it in check. And so you have to call on the power of God and ask him to give you the strength to respond to those situations in a way that honors him. Listen, when somebody attacks you, when somebody criticizes you, when somebody drags you through the mud, when somebody stabs you in the back, somebody attacks your family, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, and you want to lash out at them and hit back and hurt back, you have got to stop and ask yourself this question: is my response going to honor God? You've got to stop and ask that question. Is what I'm about to do going to bring any honor to God? Is what I'm about to say going to bring any honor to God? If what I'm about to post on social media, what I'm going to Facebook and tweet and Instagram out, is any of that mess going to bring honor to God? And if it doesn't bring honor to God, you don't need to do it. In fact, you shouldn't do it. Because if you profess to be a child of God and you lash out and hurt back and try to get revenge back in a non-God honoring way, then you are bringing dishonor to God. The very one you say you love and you worship and you adore, we sing about. When you lash out like that, you're bringing dishonor to the name of God. We talked a few weeks ago about every now and then you've got to bite your tongue and bite your lip, and you don't say it. And every now and then, maybe you just need to go put some gloves on so you can't type on your phone or type on your computer keyboard. And say, this is not going to honor God. I can't control myself. I need a supernatural power, but until that comes, put some big old gloves on my hands. So I can't get on a keyboard or on a phone to do anything. We used to quote that old psalm, Lord, put a guard on my mouth. But now we got to say, God, put a guard on my hands. I'm sending out all kind of stuff. I'm reading things that I shouldn't read from the people of God. I see things that don't bring honor to God. God, don't just put a guard on my mouth, and let's put a guard on my hands too now. Protect me from that. We need supernatural strength. Here's what Paul says in Romans 12. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. And on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, oh gosh, if my enemy is hungry, feed him. I'll feed him, all right. I'll feed him a bag of rocks, right? Isn't that how we think? I'll feed him. I'll grind up some glass and some food. I'll show him. No. On the contrary, what does that mean? Not like the world does. Not like people who aren't Christ followers. We're not like them. They will seek revenge. They will try to hurt you. They will try to harm you. They will try to tear you down. They'll try to destroy you. They'll try to take your job and your position. They'll try to take everything you have. But on the contrary, as much as you can, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by good. I love that little phrase, heap burning coals on his head. And we have an image in our minds, yeah, we're just throwing fire on this joker. That's not what love your enemy is about. We used to say it this way, you're just killing them with kindness, killing them with love. I'm going to love you so much you can't stand it. I'm going to love you so much that it hurts you because I love you so much. I'm going to be so nice to you, you know how to handle this niceness I'm sending out to you. I'm just going to shower you with blessings and gifts and goodness, and you can't even stand it, and you're going to just run away, and you're going to leave me alone. You won't even be my enemy anymore because I'm so nice to you. You can't even tell the truth and lie about me and say that I was so mean and bad to you because I've been so good to you. And I'm just heaping burning coals. Coals of love. Coals of love on you. That's what I'm doing. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by good. I know this morning that we're all human. It is easy to let our emotions get out of control. But we must learn to allow God to take control, to give us the strength and the power that we need in our lives. And then we must take the power of God that he gives us, and we must extend that forgiveness to those who have hurt us. Living a selfless life means that you do for others something that maybe they won't even do for you. Rick Warren, in his best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life, writes this first sentence in the entire book: it's not about you. That one statement goes against everything the world has taught us. It goes against what many of our parents and our grandparents have taught us. It is a different way to look at life. It is a new way to live. It is about giving yourself to something other than just you. It is about being content with what you have and being willing to serve others where they're at. It's about seeing your time and your energy and your talents and your money as not your exclusive possessions, but seeing all those things as gifts from God. And if you would take a moment and think about every gift that you've ever been given in this life, who is responsible for those gifts? Who has supplied what you have need of? We find an answer to this in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. And the answer is culture tells us, but here it is. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. If God has met your needs in the past, do you not believe that God cannot meet your needs in the present and in the future? He's met every need I've ever had in my lifetime. And I believe he can still meet my need today, and he can meet my need 6 months from now, whatever that need is going to be. I still believe the words of 2 Corinthians 9 and 8. And God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. God's going to give you everything you need, but he's going to give you so much if you're faithful, so much if you're living the example that he's given us to live, that if you will be faithful in what God gives you, there will be so much left over that you can help other people with what he's blessed you with. And I've had people tell me, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. I pay the bills every month and there's money. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm able to take that and bless somebody else with it because I'm trying to live a selfless life. And what a simple concept this morning. God supplies your needs so that you can share with others. What a life-changing concept. God's going to supply my needs so I can share with others. That's what we do with our brothers from Africa. God supplies our needs here in this nation. Our needs, not all our wants now, get that straight. but he'll supply your needs. And if you'll be faithful to God and you'll give and you tithe and you honor God with that, he'll leave some left over that you can bless somebody else with. What a mind-blowing concept. But that's how God works. And that's when we begin to live a selfless life. So let me ask you a couple of questions this morning. We're going to wrap this up. One question we all have to answer honestly is this: am I living a selfless life? Now here's the trick. You already know the answer to that question. I know the answer for myself. Am I living a selfless life? I already know the answer to that question. You know whether or not you're living a selfless life this morning. You know whether or not you're willing to enter into somebody else's world. You know whether you are willing to extend a helping hand. You know whether or not you are a scorekeeper when you help people out, and if you expect anything in return. And you know this morning whether you are one who seeks revenge when people hurt you. Are you living a life today? This is the kind of life that Jesus lived. It's the kind of life that Jesus modeled while he was here on the earth for his followers to live. And as I said in the very beginning, he never asked us to do anything that we are not already equipped to do. You can live this way. I can live this way. I can step into somebody's world. I can extend the helping hand. I can do things without expecting anything in return. And I can, by the supernatural help of God, not seek revenge when people have hurt me. I can do this. And when I live that life, I'm living the selfless life that Jesus lived. I don't know about you this morning, but I want to live a life that brings honor to God in everything I do and everything I say. I want my life to be a God-honoring life. Has it always been? No. Will there be some more moments where it doesn't? Most likely. I'll probably say some things I shouldn't say. I'll probably have a little road rage every now and then. I'll probably not give what the Lord's told me to give sometime. I'll probably not stop and help when I could stop and help. So there'll be some times that I don't do everything that honors God the right way that I'd like to. But at the very best I can, I'm going to try to start doing it. How about you this morning?